10 million refugees were coming back from India into Bangladesh when Bangladesh became independent. And so we chose an area to go to do rehabilitation of refugees coming into Bangladesh. That area was particularly devastated by Pakistan army because it was Hindu majority area. And so most of the population of that area had to leave Bangladesh and go into refugee camps in India. And when they started coming back, I felt that this particular group of people needed more assistance than anybody else. And because the area they were coming back to was completely devastated. The houses were razed to the ground, burnt, and all that. So the basic idea was to get the 200 or so villages of very poor people, mainly fishermen, coming back to their homes and having nothing to live on. So we went there to start developing housing for them, getting corrugated iron sheets from Japan, got bamboos and corner posts from India. So getting the logistics of working to rehabilitate poor people, about 200,000 people into that area was the main job. So we did the work quite well in the sense that we built houses, we started growing a new crop there, we provided all kinds of tools for them to get on with their occupations and professions, and we got them going. And also we provided healthcare from 4 centers. We hired doctors and paramedics to start providing them healthcare. We provided some food assistance, milk for children, and so on. So this took us about the first 1 year of basically trying to get them to keep their body and soul together, give them some kind of a shelter, and then the time was for us to think to go. And then we thought that this area is so poor, the people are so poor, we can't really leave them to their own devices. We had to do something about poverty in that area. So once we decided that we need to do something about poverty in that area, we also decided that we need to do something about poverty in Bangladesh itself. Bangladesh was the second poorest country on earth at that time. The poorest country was called a country called Upper Volta. Now it's called Burkina Faso. And Bangladesh was the second poorest country. So it was the poorest country and we were working in the poorest area of Bangladesh. So it was a double disadvantaged area. So, so we decided that in order to help these poor, very poor people, what did we need to do? There were a lot of landless people who were basically depending on selling their manual labor to third party. There not enough work for them. And also we had a problem of very high fertility rate. Average women in Bangladesh produce 6.4 children. Per capita income was less than $100. So this kind of poverty, high fertility, high mortality of children, and then high illiteracy, all kinds of problems. So you had to basically do almost everything, starting with family planning, hoping that women would accept family planning, healthcare, savings, credit, sanitation, hygiene, water, microfinance. So all kinds of things that we could think of were needed by them. The need was tremendous in all kinds of things was needed in the sense that we had to develop the income and employment, income sources. We had to provide healthcare. Healthcare at that time in 1970s, early 70s, it was China who had what they called barefoot doctors. So we said that obviously Bangladesh doesn't have enough doctors to provide healthcare to everybody. So we need to develop paramedics, paraprofessionals, to try and provide healthcare to our people. So we had trained a group of paramedics, about 25 in the first year. In the second year, we got another 25. So 30, about 50 paramedics were created. So like that, we tried to solve problems gradually in that area. And we also started thinking about what works and what doesn't work. The paramedic idea didn't quite work because they were becoming professional themselves. What China had in their barefoot doctor program was that they were embedded within the communes. But our paramedics were BRAC workers, BRAC staff, so they were outsiders. So then we decided that we made a mistake. We don't want paramedics to be BRAC staff, but the people who will be trained should be in the village itself. Themselves, they will be part of the community. So we started training Shastra Shevikas, our health volunteers in the villages. So now BRAC has more than 105,000 women volunteers in villages in rural Bangladesh, providing healthcare to communities that they are part of. So these things started at that time. And then we found that Bangladesh's fertility rate was not declining that much, in the sense that there was only less than 6 to 10% of the people were accepting family planning in Bangladesh by late 1970s. But we had, in our project area, we had reached about 20% acceptance rate. And Bangladesh was quite happy with that. But then I decided that that won't do. We need to do something about very high infant and child mortality in Bangladesh to be able to get women to actually practice family planning. Because if you have high mortality of children, the women would like to have more children in order that some of them survive to their old age. So we then spent the entire 10 years from 1980 to 1990 teaching women how to make oral rehydration fluid at home in order to cut diarrheal mortality in Bangladesh. And we were very successful. And we also then followed it up with, from 1986 to 1990, to immunize children in Bangladesh and help the government to try and get all children under 2 immunized with triple antigen and BCG and polio and measles. So that also helped to create at least, the infant and child mortality started declining, and women also started accepting family planning. So the history of Bangladesh's very good indicators in terms of infant mortality reduction, fertility decline, and that has happened over the years is because of the kind of work that we did in these 90s, 80s and 90s. And now, of course, you'll find that what has happened in Bangladesh, and also what has happened, that when we started working in the whole of the 80s, we started going to every household in Bangladesh. We went to 16 million households all over Bangladesh, so every household was visited by our staff. So scaling up program didn't remain a big issue for BRAC. So the entire Bangladesh was our backyard. So we started expanding our program throughout the nation, whether it is microfinance or healthcare or water sanitation and hygiene and things like that. And gradually over the years, we have expanded throughout the country. We have, so what has happened is that Bangladesh as a country, apart from what BRAC has done, country has done quite well too, in the sense that we have been able to have economic growth, which has been the last 10, 15 years has been more than 5%. The last 10 years has been more than 6%. So this has also helped in taking Bangladesh from very poor country to almost a low middle income country now. And Bangladesh, out of all South Asian nations, we have put the highest life expectancy at birth, which is about 70. What is India's life expectancy now is 66, Pakistan is 65, Nepal is 66, like that. So we have at least done one thing better than our neighbors, although we are not the richest of the South Asian countries. India is per capita income is higher, so is Pakistan's. But our life expectancy at birth is higher, our infant mortality is lower, our maternal mortality is lower, our what else is lower? I think these are some of the good statistics that Bangladesh has. So over the years, we have worked on these areas: health, education. Education also, we have got almost 96% of our children are now in school. 4% are still outside the purview of not going to school. But anyway, when we have done well also in agriculture, we have been able to get our agricultural production, which we used to produce about 10 million tons of rice in 1972 from 9 million hectares of land. Now we produce 36 million tons of rice from 8 billion hectares of land. The land has shrunk, but our productivity has gone up by 4 times, but almost 4 times. Although our population growth has also gone up by more than twice, almost 2.5 times. So we were 73 million people in 1972, now we are 156, 57 million people. And our fertility rate has come down to about 2.2, which is about replacement level fertility. So in the next 20, 30 years, our population still grow because of the age structure of our population. But then we hope that by 2060, our population is going to stabilize at around 210 million. So that would be the Bangladesh's population at 220, and we hope that we'll be able to feed them, and we will also be able to provide them the basic essentials of life. That's what we hope to do.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like a lot of your thinking was that the problems are systemic and you need a holistic solution.
Right.
And in the process of educating people, giving them better health, opportunities of employment, you have improved their ability to withstand the shocks like cyclones and so on that got you started.
Right.
So speaking of resilience, because this is the theme of this year's Frugal Innovation Forum, there's been a lot of talk of, for instance, economic resilience, giving people the ability to find multiple sources of income.
Right.
There's this notion of adaptive livelihoods.
Right.
So people may originally start with agriculture, but the idea is to give them other sources of
Right.
income. I know that you've been thinking about these issues. Can you tell us a little bit about your thinking on livelihoods and increasing the options that people may have to generate income?
Well, I know that when we started microfinance, we thought that the poor people having access to financial services means that they will have to repay their loans. So we needed to have more than one income, diversify the income source in the village, so that they are better able to repay our loans. From our point of view, we wanted them to have more access to more diversified income source. So we promoted in every village poultry and duck farming and vegetable gardening and fish farming and things like that in the village. Wherever they could find some resources unutilized, we would get them to utilize those resources and get diversified income source. But now, of course, you have other options. The farmer who is farming and not depending on totally, that his income doesn't come from his farming only. He sends his daughter to Dhaka to a garment industry to get a job. His son is working in a hospital in Dhaka. So there are diversified income source for these families in the villages nowadays. And also nowadays, agriculture has improved so much, as I said, that we produce enough food for ourselves. But in the old days, it was problems. One crop failure would bring in a famine-like situation. But nowadays it doesn't, because even one failure we can withstand because there's enough food, and we have enough we have stored enough food to be able to withstand a couple of crop losses and things like that. So this resilience has improved because of poverty has improved. Poverty situation is not so intense as it was before. So these have certainly contributed to resilience in Bangladesh. And then other important things is that Bangladesh, every 6 or 7 families in Bangladesh have now got a person working abroad sending remittance into Bangladesh, rural Bangladesh. So that has also contributed to resilience in Bangladesh's economy. Now we get almost $15 billion from remittances from about 6 million of our people living outside. And BRAC is now giving loan to people who want to go abroad for better opportunities abroad. So we are also providing migration loan nowadays. So there is enough scope to be able to help people at different resilience building methodology. Yeah.
So I want to, clearly Bangladesh has made great progress. A lot of it, I think, is because of BRAC and similar organizations, and we've seen tons of similar practices in other South Asian countries.
Right.
But what do you see as some of the big challenges for South Asia in terms of resilience over the next few years? What are the big things that they have to focus on?
South Asia, I think South Asia is one part of the world which is very, very much far behind everybody else in terms of gender equality. This is the crux. South Asia is the worst. Not even in Africa. Even Sub-Saharan Africa is better in terms of a woman's role in a household. That she is more powerful. South Asia to me is the worst area for gender equality. And I don't know, I'm always thinking that if one thing that South Asia should try and do is bring about gender equality as fast as possible, it's simply because it would also improve its economic performance. If you bring in more women into the labor force, now it's less than 30%. If you bring in 60, 70, 80% in the labor force in your country, your economic growth will be far higher than what you have presently. So just from the point of view of growth, economic growth, even if it is not for any other fairness towards the other gender, apart from that, even then it will be good to have it. But I think the fairness is very important. I just had heard a story in India, a father writing to his daughter that how he failed his daughter. Why? Because he now sees his daughter working as a professional in a bank, and she comes back after a whole day's work into her home, and she still works with. She has to produce the dinner for the husband. She has to teach the children who needs homework assistance, and then he sees the daughter's husband, who is also a professional, but he's watching TV, and she's doing all the work after doing the full day's work in the office. Comes back and has to do housework, teach the children, and provide him, and he's just watching TV. And then the man writes to his daughter, saying that it's my fault. I have not done my duty. That's why you have to now suffer for it. And I feel the same way about what I have tried. I have tried to do as much as possible in terms of bringing in gender equality. But I think all of us need to think about not only gender equality in terms of an idea, but in practice. We need to practice it in our households, men, women, all of us together, to try and bring about that. And that will help not only our economies, our resilience, our families, and happiness of our society. So that's one area of resilience. I think this would improve resilience tremendously if we can bring that about in South Asia. The other South Asian scenario, as I can see, is rapid urbanization that is happening in South Asia now. South Asia used to be a rural countries, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, all of them less than 30% of its population living in urban areas. But now gradually all of them are getting more than 50% of its population by 2050 will be living in urban areas. And there will be very large cities, mega cities will be also part of South Asian scene. And running these mega cities is going to pose a great deal of new problems which we have not yet started tackling yet in terms of better urban management, municipal management, better services to the poor. So it's not just going to be rich people living in the mega cities. There will be lots of very poor people who are providing service to everybody else will also be living, and they will be needing also services. And can we provide them healthcare and education for their children and so on. So these are issues that we need to deal with and come up with solutions in the next generation of problems that I can see looming in the future. So these two are important. And so South Asia, what are the I think this would be important ones. Yeah.
So a final question before we engage the audience as well. I'm sure they have lots of questions for you. Final question, the theme of this forum is frugal innovation, and BRAC has a long tradition of doing frugal innovation. How do you think frugal innovation can be brought to bear on some of these challenges you were talking about? Gender inequality, urbanization, inequality.
I don't know whether frugal innovation can be brought into it. I mean, some of this, gender equality is going to be a value change in everybody's mindset. I always think about what happened in Northern European, 3 or 4 North European countries are particularly better in achieving gender equality. And these are Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. Other than that, most of the other countries, we may be the worst in South Asia, but most other countries also don't have gender equality. So what happened? I would like to find out what happened in these 4 countries where they have almost achieved gender equality in terms of mindset and so on. So what kind of consensus building men and women had to do in order to get everybody to agree to defeat patriarchy. So history has to be written about. We need to understand what happened in these countries in order to bring that about. So these are something that we need to know.
You mentioned, for instance, people who go abroad send money back and money transfers.
That's right. No, there are plenty of things that one could do in order to progress. But I can see that a lot of things that technology can do. We have got Bcash in Bangladesh. I don't know whether you know about this. This is a money transfer platform which sort of sends money from one phone to another, and you can get almost instant remittance back from urban area to rural area or rural area to urban area, anywhere else. But then I think we have not really exploited many of the things that we could do with Bcash. And I've been telling the Bcash members of the board to try and work on not only just money transfer, but also savings and credit and insurance that bKash clients could be offered, and they could get almost, we need to build algorithms to try and get somebody who wants 30,000 taka loan today, instantly to be, an algorithm should be able to work out whether this person can have 30,000 taka and immediately say yes or no. And some banks who is prepared to pay her 30,000 taka should be able to immediately get into it. So this kind of thing can be built, and it's quite easy to do that. It's not very difficult to try and develop algorithms in order to find out transaction history of a person, whether or not that person should get a loan. The loan savings, different types of savings she should be able to have it in her own phone. And then, of course, she can be also provided various kinds of insurance offers by insurance companies, and she can choose which one insurance company which insurance she wants to take. So all kinds of things could be offered and make life more resilient in the sense that you're not vulnerable to any for money at any. So you can get access to resources at any time you want, access to insurance products and things like that. Then I think the other thing that I can think of is access to education, quality education has been one of the big problems in most societies, not only just in South Asia, but also in the West also. Quality education, even President Obama is thinking about how to provide quality education to American citizens. So quality education in primary and secondary is a very important task for us all, in the sense that, and in South Asia is really terrible. For poor children who doesn't have private money to go to a private school, gets a very, very bad type of, very bad, not proper education at all. So how do you provide, through technology, high quality education to the remotest corner of your country, to a child who is going to a state school? So these are some of the things that we can solve through technology. With the website, we can put the best educational materials that world can offer. We can put it in the website and they can have access to it. These are possibilities. In the next 5 to 10 years, almost every corner of the country could have access to internet connectivity. So once we have that, and then I was thinking about high school maths. How do you get a child getting high school maths? You need about 1,000 lessons to take one person from almost, sort of starting with maths to high school maths level, O-level maths or A-level maths. You could do it in about 1,000 lessons, and you can put it all in the website with the best teacher teaching it, and you can have, everybody can have access to it. I know that Khan Academy has already put in some of these things already, but there could be more. We can do it in our own curriculum that Bangladesh has, that we can teach everything in our curriculum to our children in the way we want to teach. So I see tremendous possibilities of resilience being provided through education, quality of education, through use of technology. So technology could, in fact, solve some of the problems that we have not been able to solve in terms of training teachers properly, in terms of teachers teaching in this classroom properly, and imparting good quality education to our citizens.
Okay. Well, I think now we can open it up to the audience, and I'm sure that I can see hands already. So I think Isabel has a question there. So just tell us, raise your hand, we'll come to you, tell us briefly who you are, and then keep your question brief as well.
I'm Isabel. I work in the BRAC microfinance program. So one of the themes that has emerged from this year's Frugal Innovation Forum in terms of resilience has been mental resilience and the personal strength of somebody to overcome a disaster. So I wondered if you could reflect on how BRAC worked on changing mindsets and attitudes in the early days of BRAC.
So how you, so mental resilience, how you give people those kinds of mental resources to deal with shocks.
So helping people think about how they can take themselves out of the situation that they're in.
I suppose empowerment essentially.
Yes.
How do you?
Yeah. It is actually empowerment. I mean, I think early on in history of BRAC, we were looking at power. Sort of why poor people are poor. People are poor because people are powerless. Powerless to do anything about their poverty. That's why they remain poor. So how do you empower the poor? So this was part of the agenda that we felt that we needed to empower the poor with a view to be able to deal with their situation. So empowering the poor meant that you have to do two things. One is build a sense of self-worth in them so that they can tackle any problem that they face. And the other was to try and get people organized. So they're not, as an individual, you are alone and you are powerless. But as a group, you may not be powerless. So there could be power in solidarity with other people like yourselves. So we did work on these issues of powerlessness and how to empower people through building groups, building organizations, mobilizing people for power. We called it at that time, and we also looked at a book which was published at that time in 1970s. Was called Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educator. And his thing was that as long as people feel that they are only the recipients of other people's aid and they are not participating themselves in improving their own condition, they are not empowered. So empowerment only comes from you participating in changing your own condition. And it's only when people are actors in history then you feel empowered. If you are not an actor in history, you're not empowered. So these are some of the things that we worked on in the early years of BRAC to try and get people to try and think of themselves as actor in changing their own condition. And I remember there were lessons that we built up for this to try and get people to think about themselves as actor in history. And the lessons were like this, that as a human being, you are continuously changing nature. You are building a house. A tiger, even if it's a very powerful animal, he can't build a house for himself, but you do, as an individual. So it's the human being's ability to change nature to get what he wants in order to make a comfortable living for himself. Human being is, so by that, you are creating new things. So you get poorest people to think about what he has created today. So he has built a house or he has planted a seedling in order to get a crop next 6 months later. These are all part of human creativity. And that's how you build sense of self-worth in people. Even poorest illiterate people can think that he's a creative person and he's creating things for himself. So this is how we build self-worth in people. And that is building of resilience too, I suppose.
Absolutely, and the BRAC model is founded on
Founded on
community-based
that, yes, yes.
activity. Yes, there are two questions here. And then the lady there, and then, so maybe.
Thank you very much. I'm Madan Pariyar from Nepal. I work with IDE, International Development Enterprises. First of all, it's a great opportunity for me to be with you, respected chairperson, to listen to you, and for this opportunity to interact with you. Actually, I have two concerns, and I need your, insights on that. What we have been seeing that South Asia, say Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, everywhere, has observed severe political crisis, instabilities, conflicts. Several organizations, institutions have emerged, but they have failed to sustain. I just want to know, actually, the BRAC as an organization, which emerged in 1972, so long ago, and we have been continuously developing, in terms of coverage, in terms of new areas of work, helping people. Please give us your insights. What was the main reasons how you could manage to run it so successfully throughout these years? This is one. And number two, you talked about remittance, and you said Bangladesh has a, remittance is a big source of rural economy in Bangladesh, which is also true in Nepal. Almost 1/3 of the GDP comes from the remittance. But our economists in Nepal, they have been telling that this is not a good source of money for the country. It is not good. We must bring our youths back to the country. That will be more stable, a more permanent type of, source of revenue for the country. Now, what are your views on that? Thank you.
So the first question is, how has BRAC had this staying power? It's reached scale and it's 40 plus years old. Whereas in South Asia, you don't see equivalent.
Let me tell you a story about the sustainable institutions. Sustainable institutions. The BRAC is only 44 years old, and I wouldn't call it yet a sustainable institution. I remember talking to a gentleman who was studying sustainable institutions in Europe in 16th century. And he looked at 500 institutions and only found that today only 33 survives. So what are these 33 that survives after 16th century and still survives today? He found that 29 of them are universities. There are 3 churches, 1 parliament, and 1 business survives today from this 500 they looked at in 16th century. So, universities somehow or other survive many years. And he comes from a university which is surviving for almost 900 years now. So, so there is something about universities which sort of makes them survive. And I asked him, why do you think that the universities survive and others don't? So he said that it is because universities have always created leaders. And the leaders who are running these countries were created by these universities. So even if the universities were at loggerheads with the king, the prime minister was from that university, so he could protect. So the universities, by providing education to leaders of their societies, ensure that they survive. And so that was one thing that he felt that must be quite an important thing. The other thing is that if you're responding to the evolving needs of societies effectively, then you survive. So universities must have done that quite well in the sense that they have continuously changed over time and provided the right kind of education to leaders who needed to be educated or whoever was needed to be educated, right kind of education. So even Cambridge University, after so many years, has set up a business school because otherwise they will not exist, irrelevant. So in order to find relevance in things always, the moral of the story is that if you're responding to the evolving needs of your society, then you'll survive. So I hope that BRAC will survive another 400 years because I would like BRAC, the future leaders of BRAC, to be responding to the evolving needs of our societies in South Asia and Africa and other countries that we work in. And if you can do that, then BRAC will survive. And if you can't do that, it'll become irrelevant and you become extinct.
At least BRAC University will survive.
University may survive.
And the second question was remittances, and he was saying that Nepal also received.
Right, and now Nepal gets a lot of remittances, and I like the idea of Nepalese working abroad because you are not being able to provide them enough opportunities for young Nepalese to be able to be absorbed in their own country economy. And then if they are going abroad, earning money and sending it back to your country, I think it's on the whole is a positive thing rather than a negative one. So I wouldn't discourage that.
Okay, I think you had a question, and then the lady there had a question, and then the gentleman. You don't ask? Okay, the lady, and then the gentleman there.
Hello, my name is Arifin Ahmed. I work with BRAC's Human Rights and Legal Aid Services program. My question to Abed Bhai is, what do you think are some of the essential ingredients that resilient communities in Bangladesh in future would need to defend their human rights as opposed to their needs? Thank you.
So, what characteristics would resilient, how do you make communities resilient in terms of their human rights as opposed to just needs?
To defend those human rights,
To
yes.
defend
I'm not sure about that. I think you can be just as good as what I might say on this one. We have tried to provide people the knowledge, or at least the legal. We have provided legal education to almost 4.5 million of our microfinance borrowers, and they have gone through some 45 lessons on legal literacy, the basic human rights, inheritance law, and things like that. So we have tried to get as many people as possible to try and understand their rights. Then how to get their rights established is something that you have to try and get fight it out in a society which is we are still live in a society which rule of law doesn't really exist in the sense that it should be. In most Western democratic countries, rule of law do exist to a great extent, which we don't have here. The protection of law is not extended to the poorest people. That's the problem. And this is why I think 5 or 6 of us, we tried to get this agenda in this Sustainable Development Goals, which has now come out from the UN. And we have got it in Agenda 16. If you look at Agenda 16, where rule of law is one of the things that is required to be achieved by 2030 by most countries. And most people needs to have rights established and they can access their rights and so on. So I think we are still far away to getting everybody's rights established and rule of law extending, protecting everybody. But I think if we work hard, we will be able to get it someday. So Justice Agenda in the Goal 16 of Sustainable Development Goals is part of that. And we worked very hard to try and get this in the agenda because there are many countries who didn't want to have justice part of the Sustainable Development Agenda at all. There was a lot of opposition to get this in the Sustainable Development Goals, but we have got that in now. So hopefully this will have some impact over a period of time in many countries.
Yes, there's a question right in the back.
BRAC continues to grow and solve all the problems that Bangladesh has, it's going to become harder and harder to solve the marginal problem. By that I mean, it's much easier to reduce your maternal mortality from 300 to 100 as opposed to going from 100 to 50, and then it's going to be harder to go from 50 to 10. And this is my theory, so I just wanted to hear your view on that these challenges are going to be more difficult to solve because they don't need technical solutions per se. Like, it's not a vaccine that's going to fix it. It's not a solar panel that's going to fix it. The challenge is gradually going to be more intangible, like social attitudes, like as you said, gender equality. It has no technical fix. Like, I can't build a machine that's going to achieve gender equality. So how does BRAC as an organization, learning, training its people, changing its vision to achieve the same amount of impact as it becomes harder and harder to achieve it?
So essentially, it gets harder to get the same, progress. So you can reduce, maternal mortality from 1,000 to 500, but going from 500 to 100 is much harder. 100 to 50 is much harder, and it takes time and attitude change.
That's true. I mean, you are quite right. It will become harder and harder to achieve more progress. But then one has to really think. I mean, take maternal mortality in Bangladesh. When we started in 1975, looking at maternal mortality, it was 800 women died per 100,000 births. Now it has come down to about 170 deaths per 100,000 births. Now, if you look at the lowest maternal mortality in the world, it's 3 in Norway. Only 3 women die in 100,000 births. So how does Bangladesh come from 170 to 3? So I've been thinking about that. So obviously, Norway's per capita income is $40,000 or $50,000, and ours is $1,000. So obviously, we can't afford many things that Norway can. But we can bring it down, not to 3, but 30. We can bring it down to 30 from 170. And then, so we have decided that we can't have obstetrician for every birth available, but we can have a midwife available at every birth. So BRAC has started now training midwives. So this year we graduated 179 midwives. Next year we'll be doing some more like that. So over the next 10 to 15 years, we will be training about 10,000 midwives and deploy them throughout the country. So our maternal mortality comes down to not 170, but 30. So our target is that by 2035, we should have our maternal mortality coming down to 30. From 30 to getting it down to 3 would be another hard task, because we need to then approach every birth with a hospital, admission, and also looked after by an obstetrician and a nurse and a midwife. So that will take some time to do. So Bangladesh's income will have to rise too to that level. So, but anyway, so we will have to be content with bringing it down to 30 in the next 15-20 years, and after that, I suppose we will gradually start moving downwards too. So as we progress, the next level of progress becomes more difficult, and you have to really think hard about what to do next. And we have, in maternal mortality case, we have thought about this, and we have started working on that already. And there are many other aspects we are also working on, looking at the situation now, what will happen in the next 15-20 years, what we would like to have, and we have started to work on that.
I think we are achieving gender equality in this room in terms of questions. We've got 3 women asking questions, only 2
Gender equality, yes.
In terms of questions.
Yes.
More questions from women.
Is it a question? It's not a question. It is that all we wanted.
Yes.
We want to have it, and we must achieve it. And this is very important for for human
So now
happiness.
men are fighting back in the room. We have
Right,
two
right.
men asking questions. So women, please raise your hands.
Ethan Mayers with Tao Innovations. Thank you so much. This was really interesting to hear your reflections. So you've lived a very interesting life, and you've seen the birth of a country and so much transformation, while simultaneously the world and technology has changed also. You've seen the advent of the personal computer, mobile telephone, the internet. I was hoping you could just take a moment to reflect, on a lifetime of seeing this country built and seeing all the changes, on the limits and also the role of technology and where do you see it's going, just the limits and the roles of technology.
No, I think the role of technology is going to revolutionize, going to change our lives for the better. There's no question about it. I mean, as I said, that education, which we think very important for every human being to get good education, is going to be available through technology and much faster than we have. Then we have to train every teacher and supervise him whether he provides high quality education or not. So these are some of the things that is going to make a lot of change in our society and make it much easier for life too. I was thinking that even in the villages, I was in India about a year ago looking at eye care, and they have eye surgeons in hospitals and vision centers all over the country, and then they are linked with telemedicine. The surgeon in the hospital can see what the patient is like 200 miles away, and can immediately subscribe medicine, or say you can come and we can do an operation for you and things like that. So this kind of thing is going to make life much easier. You don't have to send all the best doctors all over the country. They can see things, diagnose disease, immediately provide treatment, and when necessary bring them into the hospital.
What do you think the limits are? What are to keep in mind from what you've seen, what are the limits of technology?
What are the limits? What are things that technology cannot do?
Technology cannot do. Technology can't bring about gender equality, for example. Technology can't do that. It is the human mind that has to do it. It must understand that it is important for human happiness in order to bring about gender equality and fairness in our society.
I think there was a question.
I'm Nazrul Islam from Bangladesh Bank. So BRAC and Fazle Hasan Abed is a lot of success. You have a lot of a great history. So do you have any failure story in your life that you wanted to implement but you couldn't?
Oh yes.
Secondly, what is it that you have for the next couple of years to implement? Thank you.
We have had a lot of failures. There's no question about it. I mean, we tried many things, which some of this did not work. For example, I tried at one point in 1990s to plant 25 million mulberry trees so that about 400,000 women could become silk producers. But so we planted this 25 million trees over the roadside verges throughout the country. But then 1994 or 94 floods or 1998 floods killed off most of my mulberry trees. So they couldn't withstand water, standing water. So this was a failure in the sense that we put in a lot of energy. There were 13,000 kilometers of roadside verges that we planted these trees. We had 11,000 women looking after these trees, but still it failed because there was a flood and which was standing water, the trees can't survive. So it didn't survive. So anyway, this was a program which failed. So we have done many things which obviously did not succeed. throughout the. So it's not something that we were particularly unhappy about. We tried something, it didn't work, so we went somewhere else and we learned from it and we did something else. So I don't think the one who is working on many things, you don't expect that everything will succeed. And we should not be too disheartened if something doesn't work, but as long as you can take lessons from it and learn from it and go somewhere else and do something else, this is fine. So I'm not too worried about lack of success in some things. And as you said, that, what would Bangladesh, what BRAC is going to do in the next 2 years? Many things that we are already doing it and we will continue to do it. So there are plenty of agenda for BRAC. As I said, that I've seen it in India, that lots of vision centers all over the country. I'd like to set it all up in Bangladesh too. So just seeing something in another country also gives me the urge to do something in Bangladesh and other African countries where I work in. So we'd like to do these things in other countries too.
I think that's a very interesting place to close the session because,
Yes.
We've been talking about the successes of Bangladesh, the successes of BRAC, what you've achieved in 40 years, but it's interesting to observe that failure is a part of that journey. Trying
Yes,
things,
absolutely.
some things work, some things, but learning from them.
Right.
I think that's also at the heart of resilience, the theme of this
Right.
forum.
Absolutely.
Which is, all kinds of things happen, some things are good, many things are bad, but we have to learn from them to do better the next time. So on that note, I'd like to thank you again very much, Abed Bhai, for being with us
Thank
and
you
sharing
so
your
much.
thoughts.
But the last word is that don't get defeated by failures. So learn from it and go somewhere else.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have a small present for you from BRAC. BRAC is giving back to you what you have given. I think we can just stay here because there's one final thing that I think Maria would like to have you do before we actually get off the stage. So